North Node in Aquarius and in the 11th house. Introduction. With your North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, your North Node is doubled down in the house ruled by its same sign. This means that what you have mastered in the past you have overdone to an extreme, and it may be, or may have been, if you are further along your journey, more difficult for you than most to overcome your emotions and stay grounded. If you have personal planets in air signs, this may come more naturally to you, but depending on your specific chart, it could be more challenging. Having your North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house means your South Node is in Leo in the 5th house. The sign, Aquarius, of your North Node signifies the qualities you need to develop, but the house, 11th house, indicates in what area of life you most need to express them. Likewise, the sign, Leo, of your South Node signifies the qualities you need to let go, but the house, 5th house, indicates from what area of life you most need to walk away. Qualities to cultivate: objectivity and logic, platonic friendship, putting the best interest of the group above personal interest, sharing and giving, equality and equanimity, emotional detachment, valuing the uniqueness of others, innovation, planning for the future, freedom, where to cultivate them, communities and groups, technology, social media, friends, goals and aspirations, humanitarian ideals, collaborative projects, organizations and companies, innovation, charity, qualities to let go, stubbornness and willfulness, doing things one's own way, dominating or controlling others, risk-taking, need for attention, approval, and praise, drama, passion, and going to extremes, stepping over others, pride and ego, showing off and hogging the spotlight, patronizing others, where to let go, creative self-expression, pleasure and entertainment, play, hobbies, short-term romance, fun, drama, adornments and costumes, leisure time, children, understanding the axis. Having the North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house places you on the authenticity axis. This axis deals primarily with placing the ego, Leo/5th, in society, Aquarius/11th, and finding a balance between them. It's a fixed axis of value and uniqueness, hierarchy and equality, performance and observation, the personal and the collective. You may see yourself as superior to others in some way, see everyone as equal, or both at the same time. In any case, your task is to find your role to play in the grand design. House 5 is ruled by Leo and the Sun, which, of course, is the giver of life around which our solar system revolves. Leo is the king, a noble and courageous leader who is both generous and strong, warm and authoritative. The 5th house encompasses all forms of pleasure, creative hobbies, children, play, and short-term love affairs. Opposite Leo sits Aquarius, ruling the 11th house and governed by Uranus, the planet of individuality and surprise. There's an inherent contradiction to Aquarius. The water-bearer is actually an air sign, and Uranus, planet of individuality, rules the 11th house of all humanity as one large group. Leo may be king, but Aquarius is Robin Hood, always rebelling against the established order for the cause of greater equality. However, they are both attached to their unique individuality, sometimes too attached. Your life path involves balancing your uniqueness with everybody else's, and finding a way to contribute your authentic self to the world without too much ego. I am special and so is everyone else is a major theme of your life. Your karmic classroom is in how you perform your identity in groups and society at large, and finding a way to do so that strikes a balance between authenticity and putting on a show. The fixed axes deal with value, so issues of self-worth, whether you love or loathe yourself too much, are signs of imbalance. With your North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, the spotlight may feel so natural to you that you don't realize when you're stealing it from someone else. You're a natural entertainer, but the life of the party mantle isn't your burden to bear alone. Relax, people will still have fun even if you're not in charge. Learn to work together with others towards a common goal instead of making it your mission to lift everyone else's spirits. They can lift yours, too. And while your enthusiasm can be contagious, you may sometimes need to step back, be more objective, and involve others as equal partners instead of bossing them around. Beware of your need for attention and seeing everything you do as an extension of yourself, especially your children, if you have them. Learn to raise everyone to your level and see them as equals. Fire asserts itself outwardly, air internalizes and intellectualizes. Whenever you have a fire south node and an air north node, your natural tendency is to get stuck in ego performance mode at the expense of others' feelings. You've got to learn to pause, stop seeing the world as a stage, and instead put yourself at the service of others. Let go of your need for attention and learn to see others' self-expression as being just as important as your own, not as a threat to your uniqueness. Egalitarianism is the central power of this axis, learning to see oneself as neither better nor worse than others, because self-loathing is just as unhealthy and egoistic as narcissism. Yes, you are a unique person with a special role to play in the greater design, but so is everyone else, and you need every musician to feel heard in order to play a beautiful symphony. And yes, everybody is equally important, including you. You, too, have an important role to play in the grand design. You might not know what it is, or you might not feel that what you do is special or important, but it is. Trust that. The authenticity axis is about balancing a light-hearted approach with a fearful one, love with friendship, elitism with equality, leadership with democracy, our natural children with adopted ones, individuality with conformity, rebellion with service, creativity and imagination with truth and observation, limelight with backstage, egoism with altruism, spontaneity with reflection, our individual goals with our collective dreams. This axis is about finding our part in the whole and learning to play it beautifully, with equal parts humility and confidence. Like all astrological axes, it's about balance. It isn't about feeling bigger or smaller than anyone else, but learning our right size in all situations. It means valuing one's own contributions as well as those of everyone else, including all living beings. It means knowing how to have fun for yourself while also doing something for the greater good. When you master this axis, you will have a healthy sense of self-worth, confidence without egotism, and intellectual humanism without a loss of emotional connection. Ultimately, it is about balance. Perhaps you are already on your way. Your quest, to be part of something bigger than yourself. With your North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, you have a profound desire to belong, but your instinctive way of finding belonging through intense relationships and romantic affairs backfires on you. You bring tremendous passion, creativity, and fun into this life and want to share it with someone special, but what will actually bring you success is to share your talents with everyone equally. Deep down, you want to be seen as special and loved by someone for who you uniquely are, but you expect this from others before giving it to them first, and that's why you never seem to be loved the way you want. With increasing desperation, you may take bigger and bigger risks, only to lose more and more. Your need for attention, praise, and validation is a bottomless pit. You won't receive what you want until you give it away. Winning the approval of others is actually a false barometer of your success. Instead of staying attached to personal, emotional relationships, you have to learn to detach and regard others with dispassionate goodwill and universal love. What you seek from specific others will be found once you dedicate yourself to a cause bigger than you or any personal relationship. As you move into a place of calm detachment, you will experience greater freedom and security. Once you forget your personal desires and focus on giving attention instead of receiving it, life will bring you the fulfillment you deeply crave. When you dedicate yourself to a cause bigger than you, you will feel connected to humanity in a way you never dreamed possible, and people who share your vision will show up to support you. Your past, strengths, and excesses. Don't worry, you don't have to leave everything about the South Node behind. Again, it's about balance. The trick in balancing out the South Node is to embody the positive aspects while leaving behind the excessive and negative qualities. With a South Node in Leo in the 5th house, being the boss and following your passion comes naturally to you, but this is not your path this time around. In past lives, you were likely a regent, entertainer, or someone famous, someone who was in the spotlight and received a lot of praise and adulation. You may have been the golden child or an only child. You were creative and got to spend a lot of time in leisure, partying, having fun, and getting into trouble. You were a big risk taker, often in gambling or in love, and pursued many intense, passionate, but short-lived love affairs. You were made to feel special, which puffed up your ego beyond its right size. In this life, you may continue these old habits, always craving the validation you're used to receiving, because you haven't learned how to give it to yourself. The conflict between authenticity and fitting in is likely a major theme of your life. In the past, you were likely a dominant personality who took up a lot of space and attention. Yet it's likely this method backfired and didn't win you many friends. Many people with this placement had lonely childhoods. Despite that, you likely shone as an individual. You knew how to enjoy life and have fun, entertaining others with your joyful demeanor. You needed a lot of attention though, and this could be tiring for the people around you. Without meaning to, you likely rubbed others the wrong way and stole the spotlight from them. You needed more praise and attention than most, which led others to resent you. You may have even thought you deserved it, believing yourself to be better than them. It's also likely you had to deal with people who outshone you. This is life showing you what it was like to be on the other end of your own past life behavior. It may be tough for you to follow others' ideas, because you have a strong sense of self. Stubbornness can be a big hurdle with this placement, and when threatened you likely respond with arrogance. This does not win you any friends, it just makes you come across as childish and a know-it-all. On the plus side, you bring tremendous creativity, generosity, playfulness, and warmth into this life. You're easily fun to be around and have a talent for uplifting and inspiring others. You're the best person to go to when a friend is feeling down. In addition to your light-hearted fun side, you are also incredibly loyal and strong-willed, which means you can accomplish goals and sustain relationships easily. A romantic at heart, you've had many lifetimes of passionate and intense love relationships, and you may have continued this pattern in the first part of this life. Subconsciously, you're always looking for the next great affair. Even if you're still technically involved with the last one. You may use love affairs to boost your self-confidence and win approval, or love may be denied you as long as you pursue it for this reason. In the past you were a master of love, but it was a very selfish, superficial love. In the past, you were an excellent artist. Creativity is something you were born with and you bring it with you into this life. However, if you use it to boost your ego or attract the interested sex, you're doing it wrong. You likely have a natural talent for dealing with children. Although you may end up having trouble with your own, they may be rebellious or sickly, or you may not be able to conceive. For better or worse, your karma will certainly show up during childhood and with the children in your life. You easily look down on people whom you judge as different or wrong for whatever reason. Sometimes the reason is simply that they are doing things differently from you and you don't understand why. Instead of assuming they have their reasons, you tend to assume they're just wrong. The trick in balancing out the South Node is to embody the positive aspects while leaving behind the negative qualities. You are tempted to continue taking center stage in your own personal drama, but this is not your path this time around. Time for a new tactic. While this strategy worked very well for you in your early life or in past lives, it will now backfire on you. Instead you need to give up the spotlight and your individuality to merge with the crowd. But this isn't easy for you. Situations in which you are not the center of attention can be challenging, but this is a community lifetime for you. You must now leave behind the emotions, attachment, drama, and ego of your South Node Leo 5th house past and trade it in for peace, detachment, non-judgment, and acceptance of others, and yourself, as they are. You are learning to sit back and observe without giving into an emotional response. Instead of passionate flings that burn out as fast as they started, you're learning to embrace the kind of enduring friendship that comes with long-term commitment. You're here to experience the other side of love, a transcendent, almost spiritual love that is detached but pure and free of selfishness and ego. You're learning to love people not for what they can do for you, but genuinely for who they are. It's best for you to avoid following every romantic or sexual opportunity, because that is a path you've already overdone in the past, only to find that there was no one waiting for you at the end. In this life, love affairs ultimately weaken you and draw you away from finding a deeper purpose in life. You will no longer find the kind of deep fulfillment you crave through personal relationships. You have to look beyond your immediate circle to the big picture of humanity. It is only once you release the need for approval and praise that you will finally find the love that you seek. Perhaps the most important aspect of this placement is the need to let go of ego, because it will only lead you away from authenticity, peace, and happiness. Recognizing and validating the uniqueness and individuality of others can help. It's essential that you learn to appreciate differences, and to respect people even when you disagree with them. It's a lifetime to practice equanimity. As you do so, you will begin to see that you exist in all others and all others exist in you. Instead of trying to stand out, it's time to find belonging. Your insistence on doing things your own way will only prevent you from finding friends now. At the same time, this belonging only comes with a degree of detachment. You must embrace freedom with this placement, and it is much more about an inner emotional freedom than it is about a surface-level, physical freedom. Dreams, both daydreams and the unconscious dreams of sleep, can bring you divine guidance and self-understanding, more than any other placement. It's helpful to keep a dream journal and analyze those dreams that stand out to you, or notice patterns. Instead of expecting others to adapt to you, it's time to adapt to others. It doesn't matter what your love language is, how can you show love in a way the other person is willing and able to receive it? Shifting your focus from what you can receive to what you can give and how you can help is what will bring you a more profound sense of fulfillment than any amount of praise. In fact, this is where a lot of your South Node Leo 5th house wisdom can help you. You know how to give love, affection, beauty, creativity, fun, and joy to others. When you use it for yourself, you lose, but when you share it with others, you win. It might be difficult at first, but if you persist you will find like-minded people who share your goals and aspirations and with whom you can collaborate on a common cause. Sometimes this might not happen in person. Collaborators could be scattered across the world or even across the centuries, and you may be contributing to a body of knowledge rather than something as obvious as a political cause. Either way, North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house is all about banding together for the good of humanity. It's essential for you to find a cause you believe in, one that's bigger than you, and dedicate yourself to it. In this lifetime, you won't feel satisfied simply working for your own ego. You need to feel you have a higher purpose and leave a legacy that lives beyond you. You are likely to find success in social causes and associations, potentially becoming a great leader. The internet and social media can be a source of luck. As you move towards your North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, life will bring you tons of friends who want to help you achieve your goal. You are learning to see everyone as equal and equally valid, each of them a star of their own movie, not merely supporting actors in yours. You are learning to see the interconnectedness of all humankind, not just with itself but with all life forms. You may resist letting go of ego and submitting to something bigger than yourself, but as long as you persist stubbornly with your old way of doing things, life will keep taking more and more away until there is nothing left and you are forced to humble yourself and try a different route. One beautiful thing about having the North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house is that you're meant to find your tribe and leave a lasting impact. Before you begin, I cannot emphasize enough that this process of psychological evolution does not require you to completely abandon your South Node and run willy-nilly into your North Node. When people do this, they often misinterpret their lessons and go off track. For instance, early on I tried to actively cultivate the qualities of my own North Node, but I still had so many habits, good and bad, in excess, from my South Node that I hadn't fully understood or gotten control of yet. Those South Node tendencies actively undermined and inhibited my ability to pursue my North Node, even though I truly believed that's what I was doing. So instead we must first seek to understand our South Node. Every quality, and every sign, has positive and negative manifestations, depending on its context, how it is used, and how evolved the person using it is. For example, with your South Node in Leo, you're incredibly brave, but this courage can also manifest as recklessness. It's not about disowning your courage and hiding in your house so you can never be reckless again. It's about understanding when and how to leverage your bravery. Maybe you don't need to buy that motorcycle or backpack across a country whose language you don't speak, but you do need to use your emotional courage to ask out that cutie you've been seeing at the coffee shop. Even more easily, we can misunderstand the lessons of our North Node, precisely because it is the most foreign to us, unless we have personal planets in the same placement or element, which makes it easier. In your case, someone with a North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house may think they just need to disavow romantic relationships and work at a non-profit, but this would be an immature expression of that placement. Instead, waiting and looking for lessons about prioritizing others in the relationships they already have is a healthier and more effective way to start. Then when they encounter someone they're naturally interested in, they'll already have some understanding of how to consider someone else without sacrificing too much of themselves. Of course, this isn't a linear process. We don't check our lessons off one by one on a list until we get to the reward at the end, and we don't simply move from one end of the axis to the other, though I may sometimes write it that way for the sake of clarity. In reality, our life is our best teacher. Our life is constantly bringing us lessons and reflecting our evolutionary stage back to us, showing us what we've mastered and what we still need to learn. Even more important than anything I've written in this book is that you judiciously reflect on how the themes of your nodal axis have manifested in your life specifically and in the people you've encountered, especially when there is a pattern, and there are always patterns. And just because a lesson repeats doesn't mean you didn't get it right the first time. It often means you're now dealing with the same subject at a higher level. Pay attention to your life. Both the South Node and North Node want the same thing, but they approach the desire from opposite perspectives. In the past, we've been pursuing our soul's deepest desire with the approach of the South Node, and the experience of never really getting what we want is what builds the pressure to pursue the North Node. The North Node path does not feel comfortable, safe, or familiar to us. It may even disgust us sometimes. But life will repeatedly deny us our deep desire until we learn and integrate the missing end of the polarity, the North Node we've left underdeveloped. In your case, your instinct to have things your way only causes you to lose, until you stop competing like a Leo and start collaborating like an Aquarius. The only way you can win in this life is to create win-win situations where nobody loses, including you. Oftentimes we do not begin to turn towards our North Node until we've truly exhausted the strategies of our South Node. At that point, we have explored all the positive and negative effects of our South Node habits and instincts, and we're able to use them with discernment instead of compulsion. But this point may come only when we feel completely defeated by our life. Exhausted, we're finally forced to try a new strategy, and we end up gaining even more than our deep desire, more than we ever dreamed. The fulfillment of our North Node promise doesn't look like becoming an embodiment of only our North Node, but instead embodying the best qualities of both the South and the North Node. Putting the ego in service of the collective. The ID, primal needs and desire, ego, personal identity, and superego, awareness of others' needs, are all essential aspects of our consciousness, each with an important role to play. South Node Leo 5th house people have had many lifetimes of building their ego, but this came at the cost of developing their superego. Because they are so good at fulfilling their egoic desires, they neglect to consider what is best for the collective, and in this lifetime, they no longer have the status that enables them to get away with ignoring others' needs and desires. Now when they try to pursue their egoic whims, either others deny them or they get what they want only to be disappointed or have it backfire. These folks are learning that merely fulfilling their own desires leaves them, well, unfulfilled. North Node Aquarius 11th house people won't feel a sense of true satisfaction until they learn to serve the needs of the collective. As long as they fail to consider others, they will feel empty. Note that it isn't enough just to consider one's partner or one other person with whom they have a close, interpersonal relationship. They have to truly think beyond their own bubble of self-concern and personal relationships. The ego is a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. When North Node Aquarius 11th house people figure out how to leverage the energy and motives of their ego to serve a higher purpose for the collective, their success and happiness skyrocket. For example, an artist might have a variety of reasons for wanting to make art. On the primal level, she may simply need the emotional release of creative self-expression. On the egoic level, she might want attention and praise and to be seen as special. On the superego level, she might have a genuine desire to connect with others through art, or to advance a social cause through her subject matter. On a deep soul level, she may truly long to raise the collective level of consciousness through her work. Now, when she makes art, where is it coming from? It is coming from all of the above motives and intentions. She has figured out how to align her personality, the ID and ego needs, with her purpose, the superego and soul desires, to have her ego serve the collective. The essential truth of the authenticity axis is to understand that these are not in conflict with one another. This is what the Dalai Lama calls the law of dependent arising. What is truly good for one is good for the other, and vice versa. This comes from recognizing that we are not separate, individual beings, but each of us is one part of a larger, living organism. We all have lower and higher motives for what we do, but as long as South Node Leo 5th house people only tap into their baser, egoic intentions, their ego will ultimately sabotage their success. However, when they allow their humanitarian side to lead the way, allowing the ego to serve their more selfless goals, they will accomplish what they set out to do. Releasing excess emotional energy. These folks have an excess of highly charged, creative emotional energy, but when they indulge in petty, negative feelings, they only hurt themselves and others. They have to learn how to manage and channel their feelings into productive pursuits. This is easier said than done. It is deep inner work that requires daily, not weekly or monthly, attention, practice, and internal discipline. One way to release this excess emotion is through the letting go technique. Emotions are energy in the body, and we hold different emotions in different parts of our body, emotions that have been repressed and built up over the course of our lives. When a thought, person, event, or situation triggers an emotion, it taps into all the other times we felt that way, and we remember other events and situations that confirm that emotion is real for us. So when a colleague rejects our attempt to sit with them at lunch, we remember all the other times we felt rejected, and it can be overwhelming for South Node Leo 5th house people because they have such passionate emotional natures. Once we remember all the other times we felt rejected, it worsens that feeling and seems to validate it. Thus our mind concludes, everyone always rejects me. But this, we also know, is not true. It's just how it feels in the moment. The problem is that there is so much emotional energy for the mind to tap into in the body, so much we have not fully released. So we have to practice letting go. This is a technique described by Dr. David Hawkins in his book Letting Go, which can be immensely helpful for getting ahead of negative emotions so they don't sabotage our lives. When we feel triggered into an intense emotional reaction, we need to isolate ourselves and allow ourselves to feel what's coming up. We need to put the focus on the physical feeling in the body and keep our focus on that, without getting caught up in thoughts and memories of other times we felt this way. There are many resources to help you practice this included in the North Node Aquarius 11th House workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. The problem is that when we think about or even ruminate on our past and other times we've felt this way, our mind is actually numbing the feeling itself. We are slipping into the trap of thinking our emotions rather than actually feeling our emotions. But only feeling them will allow them to dissipate, thinking them will keep the emotions repressed in the body, while simultaneously giving us the illusion of relief. The thing is, thinking doesn't make the feeling go away. So when we feel triggered, we have to isolate ourselves and put our focus on the physical feeling of the emotion in the body, allowing ourselves to feel it fully without getting distracted by words and thoughts. This results in an intensification of the emotion, which can be alarmingly painful. But if we stick with it, if we're doing it right, no intense emotional reaction lasts more than 20 minutes at most. It can be an exhausting and sometimes even frightening process, but it's worth it. As we make a habit of releasing trapped emotion, there is less and less of it swirling around in the body. When future triggers come up, the emotional reaction is less and less intense as we release more and more. This is a liberating process, and South Node Leo 5th house people will be surprised by how their lives transform. By how things that once bothered them no longer upset them, by how they begin to forget the things they used to dwell on. It's important to note that one should not purposely try to trigger an emotion by thinking their way into it, but simply recognizing when an emotional reaction comes up and taking the time out to fully feel it. Of course, this isn't always possible in the moment. Sometimes we have to wait for the end of the workday when we can get in our car, go park somewhere quiet, and scream and cry as much as we need before going home to our families. Is it fun? No. Does it improve our stability and happiness in the long term and have a positive ripple effect across our lives and other people? Yes. Another very helpful way to look at it is to distinguish between what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body and the self. The pain body is the part of us that is addicted to negative emotion and wants to feed on it at all costs. The degree to which we are surprised or taken off guard by a pain body upset is the degree to which we are unconscious of the triggers that affect us personally and the inner landscape of the pain body. It is possible to begin to identify the triggers that set off your pain body. This, in fact, is the most important work you can do. The very act of identifying your pain body triggers immediately disempowers them. As you see, in the moment that you are being triggered by something or someone, the trigger has less power over you. The power a trigger ever has is the fact that you don't see it. Eckhart Tolle. However, we are bigger than our pain bodies, we are ourselves, and we are part of a collective. As we develop awareness of our pain body and practice letting go of painful emotions, we begin to dissolve the pain body and the powerful hold it has over us and our lives. This makes not only our own lives better, healthier, and happier, but has a ripple effect through all our relationships and actions. Thus, we encounter again the law of dependent arising. What is truly good for one is good for all. Through healing ourselves, we heal the world. South Node Leo 5th house people are also enormously creative and often very talented, so having a creative outlet is another essential way for them to release emotional energy. If they find a healthy and effective outlet for their excess emotional energy, and practicing letting it go, they can gradually release themselves from many karmic blockages and psychological burdens, living lighter, freer lives. Cultivating the intellect. North Node Aquarius 11th house people have a natural curiosity and a deep intellectual hunger. Satisfying this thirst helps them to counterbalance their intense emotional nature, and can potentially help them detach, look at things more objectively, and redistribute their passion more evenly. First, it helps them to learn how to think scientifically and guard against logical fallacies. Scientific thinking is a systematic approach to understanding the world through observation, experimentation, and reasoning. It involves critical thinking, skepticism, and an openness to revising beliefs based on new evidence. As much as possible, North Node Aquarius 11th house people must learn to step back and emotionally detach from situations to evaluate them with a more scientific approach. Logical fallacies are errors in reasoning that undermine one's logic. They can involve ad hominem attacks, attacking the person making the argument rather than the argument itself, appealing to authority, arguing that something is true simply because an authority figure endorses it, without further evidence, false dichotomies, presenting only two options when more exist, often framing them as the only possibilities, slippery slope arguments, asserting that a relatively small first step will lead to a chain of related events culminating in a significant effect, hasty generalization, drawing a conclusion based on a small or unrepresentative sample, saying that correlation is causation, red herrings, irrelevant information that distracts from the actual issue being discussed, begging the question, assuming the truth of the conclusion within the premises, leading to circular logic, and perhaps most importantly for South Node Leo 5th house people, appeal to emotion, using emotion instead of valid reasoning to persuade, such as fear or pity. Recognizing these fallacies helps them not only interpret external information and events more clearly, but most importantly, avoid the traps of their own mind. More than anyone else, South Node Leo 5th house people's passionate nature makes them vulnerable to emotional reasoning, when they draw conclusions based on the intensity of their own emotions rather than the facts. They may interpret information in a way that reinforces their emotional responses, leading to biased conclusions that align with their feelings rather than reality. Emotional experiences can lead them to make broad conclusions based on specific incidents, causing them to view situations through a distorted lens. North Node Aquarius 11th house people are also meant to be part of a larger group or organization, and learning about group psychology can be extremely helpful. In fact, it's likely that life forces them to join institutions or organizations bigger than themselves out of necessity when they'd rather strike out on their own. This is no accident. Life is trying to bring them people and situations in which they have to learn how to collaborate. Patrick Lencioni identified the 5 behaviors of an effective team, and they can truly apply to all relationships. In the 5 behaviors of an effective team, the team must establish trust before they can engage in healthy conflict, through which they find a solution to commit to. But no one can commit to a solution until they feel their perspective has been heard, and no one feels safe enough to open up and share their perspective unless they trust the other people involved. This is why establishing trust is so important, and people trust you when they feel you'll truly listen and understand rather than bulldoze them. That's what North Node Aquarius 11th house people are here to learn, how to establish greater trust with others by truly understanding them and prioritizing their needs. There are many resources to help you learn this included in the North Node Aquarius 11th house workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. When it comes to deeper subjects, studying comparative religion, culture, and philosophy can be immensely satisfying, as North Node Aquarius 11th house people love to learn about different belief systems. Learning to appreciate all ways of life with a less judgmental attitude is a huge part of their personal growth. In this line of study, they will come to see that all belief systems and cultures share in some essential values that serve as a template for all humanity, the perennial philosophy. It's then that they see the unity in diversity. Their most fulfilling relationships are likely to be with people who have a much different background from their own. When they come to truly, deeply experience themselves in all and all in themselves, they will have achieved a new level of spiritual awareness. foregoing prestige in favor of freedom. South Node Leo 5th house people have been accustomed to a high social status from past lives, and this may still be a value they deeply hold. But they must not make it their goal, for this will only lead them astray of their true happiness. Due to many incarnations of being in the spotlight, South Node Leo 5th house people come into this life expecting respect, and being very disappointed. They tend to expect praise without earning it, or pursue prestigious roles and accolades, believing that outward achievement is the only way they'll feel worthy and secure in themselves. Of course, this is a recipe for regret. When they use prestige as their North Star, they get off track. Prestige is the enemy of true ambition. Prestige is like a siren who lures stalwart sailors off their boats, dooming them to serve on boards and committees and give talks and graduation speeches and write forwards to other people's books. All the time spent pursuing and fulfilling prestigious opportunities is time people don't spend on their real goals, or on their personal fulfillment. Sometimes that pressure doesn't only come from within, though. South Node Leo 5th house people are often born into families or cultures that are very traditional and hierarchical. They may have a high-status parent who expects them to follow in their footsteps and maintain the prestige of the family. Liberating themselves from this pressure, getting their parents' voices out of their head, can be an enormous challenge for South Node Leo 5th house people. But they must work on it, or else risk living their life for someone else and not for themselves. There are methods and advice in the North Node Aquarius 11th house workbook on northnodesign-and-house.com. Freedom and independence are more psychological than anything else. When we cultivate freedom internally, external freedom follows. This is the path of North Node Aquarius in the 11th house. Mastering the will. South Node Leo 5th house people have an overdeveloped will, and may sometimes exercise it just for the sake of seeing how strong they are and how they can dominate others. Their power trips only backfire though, by destroying the very relationships they crave so deeply. These were the type of children to throw a tantrum in order to get their way. They easily resort to drama as a manipulation tactic. Of course, that's not going to work anymore. They need to learn to recognize when their willpower is flaring up, and soothe it by taking the opposite approach, asking what others want. It's not that they need to totally repress their desires and subject themselves to the will of others, but simply take a more equitable, democratic approach. Willpower isn't all bad, of course. North Node Aquarius 11th house people can use it to reach goals that others only talk about. What's even better is when they leverage their willpower to help the collective. They can also empower others simply through their own example. Their innate confidence and determination are qualities others lack and can learn from them. More than anyone else, these folks are capable of encouraging and inspiring other people simply by believing in them, and showing them how to believe in themselves. It's beautiful to have a friend or family member with this placement, because they are so good at inspiring confidence in us. Because of their willpower, these folks are incredibly resilient. No obstacle cannot be overcome in their minds, and their high spirit always bounces back. Excess willpower also manifests as a need for control. But when South Node Leo 5th house people try to control every detail of their lives and every step of their journey, it backfires. Either they lose control or their aim is misguided and doesn't produce the desired results. They tend to fall victim to the backwards law, in which the harder they try, the more they fail. It's not that they need to abandon their goals. In fact, pursuing their dreams is a big part of their nodal path, but they're learning to release attachment to how it happens. Instead, they need to cultivate trust in life, and trust that what is meant for them won't pass them by. Because they're so stubborn, they might stick with pursuits or relationships long past the point when even they knew they should have given up, but when they finally let go, they realize why that desire wasn't in their best interest after all. One of the best qualities of a South Node Leo 5th house person is their loyalty. They make incredibly loyal friends and partners. They just need to balance it with loyalty to themselves and their own best interest, even when it's hard. But they tend to stay committed even after they realize it's no longer in their own best interest, or even in the other person's. For example, they may commit to a relationship and hang on for years, even decades, after they've fallen out of love with their partner. They never know when to cut their losses, and it leads them to lose far more than necessary, including years of their life. What they don't realize is that sometimes what they think is loyalty is really just their own stubbornness. Their ego isn't willing to admit that they made the wrong choice, or that circumstances have changed and it's no longer right for them to stay. When they meet someone else's will, South Node Leo 5th house people may reflexively resist even if deep down they don't truly want to. Their will assertion is less about what's right or best and more about exerting power and dominating others. Of course, this sabotages their relationships as they continually deny others, even responding in overly dramatic ways that come across as immature. They are sacrificing the group's success for their own ego, exactly what they need to learn to stop doing in this lifetime. Instead, they need to continually ask themselves, and others, if they feel things are fair. Otherwise they risk losing their position of leadership, if anyone even gave it to them in the first place. Impatient and impulsive, they can tend to move too quickly and then realize they're not proceeding effectively, and decide to start over. As a result, many of their projects begin with a lot of false starts and restarts before they finally get on track. As in other areas of life, it would behoove them to be still and wait for more information, beginning with questions rather than statements in order to draw that information to them. They need to adopt a more scientific mindset in this respect. These folks are learning how to create win-win situations, ensuring that others will be treated fairly and their needs will be met, because only fair treatment will lead others to support them. The 5 behaviors of an effective team is a great structure for them to follow, both in group dynamics and one-on-one relationships. First, they must establish trust before they can have healthy debate or conflict, so they can commit to a plan and hold each other accountable to achieve results. It all begins with trust, ensuring that everyone's voice has been heard and concerns addressed, and therefore everyone is invested in the outcome. Approaching others with a curious attitude that invites collaboration will often change North Node Aquarius 11th house people's judgment of them. Often they'll discover that someone they assumed was an enemy is actually on their side. Embracing freedom, creativity, and joy. South Node Leo 5th house people bring a carefree, optimistic, childlike nature with them into this life. Even their negative qualities, like egotism and bossiness, are a result of their naive lack of awareness of others. Much like children, they have the same impatience for what they want and get desperate if they don't get it as soon as they want it. Overall, there is a lack of forward thinking with this group. Sacrificing the present for the future doesn't come naturally or easily to them, depending on other placements in the natal chart. Whatever the present circumstance is, they tend to think it will last forever, not cognizant of the transience of everything. But this childlike quality can be a huge advantage. Since they have basically pure intentions, they can be honest with others about what they think and want, and this honesty can be disarming and effective. Whatever mistakes, naivete, egotism, and willfulness they display, they are rarely mean-spirited. They tend to be very generous as well, and when they give to others, life gives to them. While their true nature is wonderfully childlike, they can easily let it get buried underneath their fears and the jadedness we all accumulate as we grow older. Envy, resentment, fear, insecurity, and anxiety cloud over their true personalities. Very often, they get so weighed down because of how intensely they feel about something that they take things way too seriously. In the process, they lose the light-hearted flexibility that would otherwise lead to success. They are learning that the tighter they cling, the more slips through their fingers. The truth is that they don't actually know how anything is supposed to be in this life. But in the past they have been so willful and so attached to their script that they get very upset when things don't unfold the way they expect. It's like they're surprised they're not masters of the universe. Instead, they need to relax into something that healthy children intuitively know so well, that life is trustworthy and everything they need will be provided in time. When they resist, they only hurt themselves. Very often, these folks cheat themselves of the gifts life brings because they think they know how things should go, and they end up regretting it because usually, they're wrong. For example, they may believe they can't have a romantic relationship with their friend because their friend is already dating someone. But because they lack emotional independence and need to be in a relationship all the time, they jump on the next best option, even though they're not passionate about the person. 6 months later, their friend breaks up with their partner. But the South Node Leo 5th house person is now invested in the relationship with their second choice. And since their friend no longer has a partner to keep them in the same city, their friend moves away. The South Node Leo 5th house person spends the rest of their life wondering what might have happened if only they'd had the strength to be single for 6 months. What South Node Leo 5th house people must accept is that they don't actually know what's best or how things are supposed to go, because things aren't supposed to go any particular way. When they try to force their agenda, they end up sabotaging themselves. Instead they must learn to relax, detach, and let things play out. Finding like minds. Whether it's a fraternity, cultural institution, church, weekend brunch gang, political party, or something else, North Node Aquarius 11th house people are meant to find their tribe and meet with them regularly to deepen relationships and advance their cause. Here, they will find relief from the emotional tension of personal relationships and enjoy a more peaceful coexistence with others. This comes from not being too intertwined and emotionally invested in the people they encounter. These folks have excellent friendship karma when they learn to leave their egos behind. While their instinct may be to go it alone or at least take the lead, this method will backfire in this lifetime. Involving other people in their projects and pursuits empowers them to consider more ideas and naturally expand their way of thinking. This leads to greater innovation, creativity, and ultimately, success. Not to mention they have more fun along the way. Ironically, North Node Aquarius 11th house people only experience their true potential as individuals when they link up with others. In a team setting, roles become more specialized and every individual gets to shine in their own role rather than dimming their light trying to do too much. When these folks consciously remember to recognize and acknowledge others' talents, skills, and specialness, people not only reflect their admiration back to them but feel more invested in their success as well. By opening themselves up to collaboration, they learn that they have strengths they never even realized. We are different people depending on context. A different person with our parents, our siblings, our college friends, our grade school friends, each successive romantic partner, at work, in sports, and so on. Different people bring out different parts of us, and what North Node Aquarius 11th house people are learning is what qualities and attributes shine in them when they're with different groups of people. When they find the right people who bring out the very best in them, their life feels much more fulfilling and meaningful. They are learning who they can become when they collaborate with the right people. They just have to avoid approaching others with the superficial, judgmental attitude they've developed in the past, and instead give everyone a chance to show them who they are, regardless of status. Judgment and comparison. South Node Leo 5th house people have become accustomed to a hierarchical structure that usually placed them at the top. But being at the top, they felt constantly threatened as others were always trying to knock them off of their throne. They had to be on the lookout for potential threats and usurpers all the time, and couldn't let anyone else get too big for their britches. As a result, they come into this life with a competitive attitude and a habit of judging and comparing others and themselves, feeling easily threatened. Too often, these folks judge others based on very superficial indicators, attractiveness, wealth, status, etc. They see the world through a hierarchical lens instead of seeing the humanity in everyone they meet. As a result, they completely misjudge people and are frequently betrayed because they trusted the wrong person. It helps to make a distinction between a status game and a wealth game. A status game is hierarchical, there is a ranking system, and in order to be number one, you have to knock out the number one guy. This is true in systems like sports and politics, where there is a black and white winner/loser judgment. But most fields, and especially the collective project of society, are not status games, but wealth games. There is much less need to compare and much more room for everyone. In a wealth game, a rising tide lifts all boats, and since diversity is strength, everyone has something valuable to contribute. North Node Aquarius 11th house people will alleviate an enormous amount of anxiety and shame when they shift their attitude to a wealth game. When they learn to see life this way, they begin to recognize that someone else's success not only doesn't threaten their own, but can help them when they see that person as a collaborator, not a competitor. Taking a collaborative approach will serve them extremely well. For example, if another student is performing better than they are, they can ask that student for advice, study tips, or to become study partners. When they take inspiration from others, they improve, and they begin to see that there is plenty of love in the world to go around. They also often judge people according to their own unconscious script of how they think things should be, not realizing that everyone is following their own script, and maybe everyone has their own script for good reason. Too often these folks simply assume that others have the same goals they do, but that's not the case. Then they get frustrated when people don't do what they think they should. They've got to learn to live and let live, without judging people for following their own path. Of course, when South Node Leo 5th house people judge others, the people they're really judging are themselves. This sabotages their relationships by preventing true connection and fostering resentment. It simply makes the South Node Leo 5th house person feel bad about themselves, even when they judge themselves as superior, because it sets up a false sense of superiority they then have to protect against imagined threats. It turns the world into a hostile place. Instead, they need to recognize that the struggle is real. For everyone. No matter how rich, poor, white, black, male, female, straight, gay, able-bodied, or disabled someone is life and life is hard for everyone. We all have different struggles, but we all still have struggles. And life brings us each a set of lessons uniquely designed for us, which are uniquely hard for each of us. It does not do to compare, because the easiest lesson for one person might be the hardest lesson for the next person. No matter who we are, on some level, life is very difficult. We all deserve compassion, patience, and grace in that regard. At the root of comparison is ego, because without ego there is no need to compare. When we release our grip on our own self-identity and self-judgment, we begin to feel better. Becoming disciplined with our thinking patterns and mindset is enormously difficult, requiring endless patience, self-compassion, and persistence. But North Node Aquarius 11th house people, with their incredible willpower and resilience, are some of the best equipped to pull it off. Seeing others as equal. South Node Leo 5th house people have spent many lives sitting on their thrones, looking down at others. It was important for them to truly believe they were better than others, otherwise they couldn't justify their position and their self-doubt would hinder their ability to effectively lead others. They had to be sure of themselves, even if that meant deluding themselves. But they are no longer responsible for leading countries and followers, and now it's time for them to descend from their isolated thrones and find their place in the collective. Think Jasmine disguising herself as a commoner and escaping the palace, only to meet the love of her life, Aladdin. Eventually their habit of judgment and comparison, and a victim mentality when things don't go their way, leads them to treat others with arrogance, resentment, and disdain. They look down on other people and provoke others to reject or even attack them. Others sense the South Node Leo 5th house person's superiority complex even if they don't overtly express it. It is also likely that the South Node Leo 5th house person has encountered many pompous, arrogant, self-absorbed people in their life, perhaps even in a parent, precisely because their karma is showing them how blind and damaging such a person can be. In the past, South Node Leo 5th house people were the special ones, and it's not that they no longer are, but they need to see that everyone is special, not only them. When they deliberately practice recognizing and acknowledging others' unique value and specific contributions and qualities, they begin to feel a sense of belonging with humankind that they've been deeply missing. Others are very happy to include them once they come down from their thrones. Putting others at center stage also helps. The self-confidence they've developed over past lifetimes is infectious and they can easily encourage and uplift others. In fact, these folks have great friendship karma when they leave their egos behind. When they make solid friendship the foundation for all their relationships, those relationships succeed. Whenever they feel insecure, putting the attention on someone else can alleviate their anxiety while earning them greater friends. Since they have often been shielded from the realities of life due to their special status, South Node Leo 5th house people are often shocked when they experience injustice or bad luck or simply the regular vicissitudes of life. This makes them very naive, and like a child, they don't always take precautions to guard themselves against abuse. When regular life stuff happens to them, they become outraged. How could this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? They are learning that life isn't fair, and they're not immune. After this happens enough, they either realize they're like everyone else or they walk through life with a victim mentality. Then they complain and expect lots of compassion and sympathy from others, especially romantic partners, whom they expect to dote on them. They're also surprised when others don't automatically obey their every command. After all, they're king of the castle. How dare anyone question them? It's therefore easy for them to bulldoze other people's opinions and ideas, becoming little dictators in the lives of their loved ones. They may unconsciously surround themselves with yes men and more passive types who allow them to walk all over everyone. But eventually life will bring them someone as strong-willed as they are, and they will have to contend with this person, perhaps many of them, in order to learn what it's like to be on the receiving end of such treatment, and to be forced to acknowledge the validity of others' perspectives. Such people can be extremely triggering for the South Node Leo 5th house person. North Node Aquarius 11th house people have to embrace humility in this life if they don't want to suffer excessively. This requires them to go against their instinct to seek credit and fame, motives which only cloud their judgment and prevent them from pursuing effective strategies and goals. Oftentimes, these folks want to go immediately for big successes, like a writer who only wants to be published by a major publishing house. But they're not humble enough to start small, and when the big publishers turn them down, they're still too arrogant to seek out smaller publishing houses. They have a sense of entitlement left over from their past lives, and they're not used to having to start small and hustle and earn their way to the top just like everyone else. Instead, they have this instinctive belief that they shouldn't have to pay their dues the way everyone else does. But they do. If the writer who was rejected by the major publishers also turns their nose up at the smaller ones, they will never be a published author. Their focus was on boosting their own ego and reputation, not on honoring the books they had written or serving the potential readers who could have benefited from their work. They don't just sabotage themselves, they hurt everyone. Another example of this type of self-sabotage from entitlement that South Node Leo 5th house people are prone to is unrealistically high romantic standards. Consider someone in their 30s who wants a family but has never had a long-term relationship because they haven't met anyone who meets their long list of requirements. As long as they reject people who don't meet their unrealistic standards, because, let's face it, they themselves wouldn't meet their own standards, they not only miss out on potential relationships with wonderful people, but they also miss out on the learning opportunities and experiences presented by those relationships, even if they weren't the one. If and when they finally do find someone who meets all their criteria, they lack the experience to actually make the relationship successful, and instead sabotage it through their own ignorance. Like the writer, they don't just sabotage themselves, they hurt everyone. The desire for self-aggrandizement and refusal to see oneself as equal to others also leads to self-sabotage when the South Node Leo 5th house person refuses to accept help from others. In this life, they're meant to be collaborators, and life will send them helpers who share their vision. But often they reject help because they don't want to give up control or credit for their success. But they simply won't succeed on their own in this life, not in a satisfying way. Too often, these folks choose to fail by themselves rather than succeed with someone else. Of course, beneath anyone's arrogant attitude there is often a lot of insecurity and self-doubt. Seeing oneself as equal. South Node Leo 5th house people aren't simply pompous, arrogant egomaniacs. Sometimes the role of the ego flips, and instead of seeing themselves as above others, they see themselves as inferior, putting other people on pedestals, especially romantic partners. But to idealize someone is actually to dehumanize them, to fail to see them accurately, as a human being with both flaws and good features. Seeing themselves as unworthy of the friend or partner they desire, South Node Leo 5th house people create self-fulfilling prophecies through their avoidance or unconscious self-sabotage. It's a very sad and painful situation, both for them and for the person who might have also wanted to get to know them. Even if they do get into a friendship or partnership with the person they've idealized, their idealization still sabotages their success. The South Node Leo 5th house person's idealization sets expectations that the person can't possibly meet, leading to disappointment and frustration, which sometimes leads to relationship patterns of idealization, disillusionment, and breakups followed by a repetition with the next partner. Idealization also causes these folks to ignore the person's faults or negative traits, leaving them vulnerable to abuse. At worst, the partner takes advantage of the South Node Leo 5th house person and can easily manipulate them. At the very least, idealizing someone prevents a genuine relationship from forming, as the South Node Leo 5th house person focuses more on the image than the actual person. At the same time, the reverse is likely at play, an unrealistic devaluation of oneself. This low self-esteem creates a cascade of negative effects and self-fulfilling prophecies in which their physical and psychological health suffer and their behavior becomes self-sabotaging. At the root of this is comparison, which comes from ego. An unhealthy ego manifests both as arrogance and self-loathing, but a healthy ego manifests as both confidence and humility. Even more than other placements, North Node Aquarius 11th house people need to bring the ego into healthy balance, or else it will consume them. Like so much with North Node Aquarius 11th house people, the remedy for this is to remove their emotions as much as possible and try to see both themselves and others objectively. Practicing mindfulness and self-reflection, identifying triggers and reframing negative thoughts, focusing on the facts and setting boundaries, and practicing self-compassion can all help. This is all easier said than done, but therapy, self-help books, and the practices included in the North Node Aquarius 11th House workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com can all help. Finding a healthy size for the ego is not a quick or simple change, but can take many years of diligent effort. It is worth it. Assumptions versus skepticism. Because they come from so many lifetimes of being a ruler whose every command was obeyed without question, South Node Leo 5th house people can have a very arrogant attitude and don't question themselves enough. Ultimately, South Node Leo 5th house people's arrogance only isolates them and prevents them from getting what they want. They want connection, but turn people off by rejecting their ideas and positioning their own opinion as superior or as some incontrovertible truth. What they need to do is develop skepticism. Do they really know what's best? These folks need to develop some healthy self-critical habits, not criticizing themselves, but being skeptical of their own assumptions. They can't continue to assume that they know best or even have all the information they need. Often it's only their own limited perspective they're taking into account. This is what's right for me, so it must be right for everyone. They're failing to acknowledge the fact that everyone is a unique individual with their own unique path. What makes sense to them might not be what's best for others, nor for the collective. More often than not, these folks are simply wrong. But they don't often have the humility to admit it. In the past, admitting they were wrong meant appearing weak and therefore vulnerable to attack and usurpation. But that's not the case in this lifetime. Now, admitting when they're wrong actually demonstrates a highly attractive level of humility that endears them to others. Because it is so hard for them to see beyond themselves, North Node Aquarius 11th house people need to seek objective outside perspectives in order to see clearly. Choosing one or two trustworthy, wise, objective, and fair people in their life from whom to seek advice can help them clarify their perspective. Learning about a thought model can also help them tremendously, whether that's personality models like the 5-factor model of personality, the Enneagram, or something else. Systems like this not only help them view themselves and others from a fairer and more objective lens, but teach them to appreciate difference. It's essential for North Node Aquarius 11th house people to develop an objective view not only of others but of themselves, one that neither puts anyone on a pedestal nor puts anyone down. Instead of approaching every topic with a statement, they need to begin with a question. Aquarius is a very scientific sign, and developing a skeptical, scientific approach is essential for these folks. What's most helpful is to view their opinions as hypotheses, not as facts, and then test them in the real world to get feedback and adjust. For example, a teacher with their South Node in Leo in the 5th house might present a student with an idea, but the student might not understand. Instead of assuming their idea is indisputably correct and their formulation is the best way to express it, the teacher needs to ask the student what exactly is confusing them. Then they can tweak their approach and try a different idea, and another, until the student understands. The whole goal of education is not for the teacher to be right, but for the student to understand, and it's this purpose, this focus on serving the student effectively, that the teacher needs to focus on. It's not personal. These folks need to adapt to others instead of expecting everyone else to adapt to them. As long as North Node Aquarius 11th house people focus on serving others, life will continue filling their cup, so they can pass it on. But if their focus is on serving themselves, they will drink their cup dry, and life will not refill it. Developing group awareness. Their unhealthy ego has led South Node Leo 5th house people to lose group awareness. In fact, they may believe they don't do well in groups and prefer to pursue solo projects and paths. But this is actually confirmation of their nodal purpose. Participating in groups and organizations reaps them karmic rewards once they open themselves up to learning the lessons that come with them. These folks have great karma as networkers. They excel at connecting people with one another. When they adopt an inclusive attitude, everybody wins, especially them. Once they learn to appreciate differences and the unique value of each individual, they are able to develop more fulfilling relationships and accomplish more together. Appreciating others also helps them release drama. When they see the value in everyone, they feel less threatened and have less desire to tear others down. Life is teaching them that they can no longer take a top-down, hierarchical approach as in the past. If they want to succeed, they have to take a democratic approach and get everyone's buy-in before they make changes or pursue a new course of action. North Node Aquarius 11th house people have great group karma in this life, for they are meant to be part of something bigger than themselves. As long as they are not trying to take the lead without permission from the group or insisting on hierarchy, they do very well. Often, they can access innovative ideas that can help the group but refrain from speaking up due to their fear of rejection. But this kind of self-silencing only isolates them, because in holding back they're betraying themselves, and they're betraying the group. But when they're brave enough to voice their honest opinions, ideas, and reactions, they'll often find others are grateful for their candor, of course, only when they do it in a gracious, considerate way. They can happily be involved with large-scale projects with many different people. In fact, as they grow older, they are likely to seek more diversity in their friend group. This diversity is what brings them the wisdom of many perspectives. Deep down, South Node Leo 5th house people fear that if they're part of a group they'll lose their freedom, independence, and individuality and melt into the crowd, but that's not the case. It's not that they will no longer be special, but that their specialness will be in its right place, playing its own part in the larger whole. Nothing can ever negate the uniqueness of every individual, including the South Node Leo 5th house person. In fact, they'll find that when they join the right group and actively work towards their North Node, they'll shine even brighter. From receiving to giving attention. South Node Leo 5th house people have received more than their fair share of attention, praise, and resources, or it may have been denied them due to their own past karma. Now it's time for them to give attention to others instead of receiving it. In fact, they may subconsciously remember the downsides of being the center of attention, the pressure to perform, the anxiety of failure, the fear of judgment and even attack. So some South Node Leo 5th house people may instinctively resist being in the spotlight, knowing deep down that this has hurt them in the past. Their instincts are on point. In this life, they're generally not rewarded when they take center stage, even the applause rings hollow. Instead, it's time for them to enjoy the show from the safety of the audience. Their infectious enthusiasm makes them wonderful supporters and fellow showgoers. Moreover, when they shift their focus from receiving attention to giving attention, they simply enjoy life more. They appreciate other people and the details of their day, every nuance of their meals and the feeling of the afternoon breeze on their cheek. When they give others their attention, people light up. North Node Aquarius 11th house people really know how to make people feel special, and simply turning their attention onto someone can boost their confidence and transform their self-image. In this lifetime, North Node Aquarius 11th house people face a choice between a personal, self-centered life and impersonal, altruistic goals. The irony is that when they choose the latter, the former falls into place. Very often these folks cannot achieve the sense of personal accomplishment, recognition, and fulfillment they long for until they dedicate themselves to selfless service, and it's through that very service they often meet the love of their life. Taking the focus off of themselves is also an enormous relief for them, because focusing too much on oneself always leads to neurosis and anxiety. When they focus on selfless service, they don't take the results so personally, no longer seeing their performance as a reflection of their worth. Ironically, it brings them real self-confidence they hadn't known before. Even learning to depersonalize their ideas can be a huge benefit. Instead of claiming credit for everything they think of, North Node Aquarius 11th house people must learn to see that we are all merely tapping into the collective consciousness in which all ideas are floating around, waiting to be plucked. The ideas don't belong to anyone specific, they belong to all of us. What matters is that someone brings them into being, regardless of who it is. There is a great example of this in the movie Amadeus, inspired by an Alexander Pushkin play. Salieri yearns to make beautiful music praising God, and sacrifices his personal happiness in the hope that God will favor him with the gift of musical supremacy. Of course, he is upstaged by the genius Mozart, who doesn't even live according to any ethical principles, let alone Christian ones. But Salieri's motives are not as pure as he believes. It's not that he wants God's glory to be sung, it's that he wants to be the one to sing it. Instead of being happy that someone is making such beautiful music, he gets wrapped up in his own envy over not being that someone. Consciously, he believes his motives are pure, to praise God, but subconsciously, his motives are entirely egotistical. Of course, whatever we do we can argue there is some level of selfish motive. But that's why it's important to place the ego in the position of servant, not master. We will always have an ego, but it has its right size and right place, and can be leveraged for a higher purpose than itself. Unfortunately, in the Amadeus example, even though Salieri's egoic motives and higher purpose seem to be aligned, his ego was much stronger, which is proven when he ultimately turns against God after not getting the talent and fame he so longed for. If his ego was truly in its right size and place, he would have been able to accept Mozart's supremacy with humility and grace, and continue to do his best even if it meant not getting the recognition he wanted. There is a line in the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient Hindu text exploring how to live a spiritual life on the earthly plane, that says, "You have a right to work, but not to the fruits of the work." The key for North Node Aquarius 11th house people, and for everyone, really, is to follow their purpose without thought of what they will personally gain from it. Easier said than done, but that is the path of liberation, to work without egoic attachment to the results. Going off script. Even though in the past South Node Leo 5th house people received a lot of attention, praise, and support, it often came at the cost of being their authentic selves. They were supported, but only if they towed the line. Being pressured to perform in a certain way meant that if they deviated from the script, they risked disapproval and even attack. Part of the joy of being a commoner in this lifetime is that they actually get to be free, to say what they want to say. These folks no longer have to follow someone else's script, they get to put forward new ideas and push the envelope. Often this is in the best interests of the collective, because they're here to advance the common cause. However, it's important they not insist on getting credit for their ideas, because this puts them back in the spotlight. Sharing the credit with the team will only endear them to others and help them have more harmonious relationships in the future. They have to accept that whether they toe the line or not, they are unlikely to receive approval. North Node Aquarius 11th house people need to get used to standing up for what they believe in, even in the face of opposition. The lesson is not so much about whether they're right, but about learning to disregard the approval of others. In fact, receiving lots of approval from others often means the South Node Leo 5th house person is off track. They may still have a deep need for external validation, feeling they have to live up to a certain image or ideal. This can be especially true with their parents, who might put enormous pressure on them to perform. As a result, they can focus too much on manipulating their image in the eyes of others. They may have a strong mask, always trying to say the right thing to elicit a certain response or get someone to like them, rather than being their authentic selves or doing the right thing for its own sake, without needing the credit. This self-consciousness inevitably depletes their self-confidence and produces social anxiety. They constantly pressure themselves to present the image they think will gain them the positive attention they think they need. But in reality, they don't need attention at all. Very often, South Node Leo 5th house people are so busy asking themselves if others like them that they forget to ask whether they actually like the people they're with. They often fall into harmful cliques and social groups just because they go with whoever most easily gives them approval and positive attention, rather than choosing friends who are actually good people. Then they have to work so hard to stay in others' good graces that when their authentic self inevitably shows up, their friends betray and abandon them. Or else, they live their whole lives in a mask. Either way, they betray themselves for the sake of approval and acceptance, which leads to long-term unconsciousness and lack of fulfillment. Releasing the need for approval gives these folks an incredible sense of freedom and autonomy that they've never experienced before. Oftentimes, these folks enter life with strong expectations about how life is supposed to unfold for them. Inevitably, they are wrong. But since they are stubborn and willful, they try to hold on to their pre-written script, and the tighter they cling, the worse it gets. Eventually something happens in their lives to force them to let go, and it's not pretty. What they're learning is to release expectations, for life, for other people, and for themselves. They try to fit themselves and others into specific roles, but the roles never quite fit. The truth is that human beings come first, then the roles, the being comes before the doing. They need to wait and see who someone really is and let them write their own role instead of trying to fit them into a generic pre-written role they have in their head. And they need to wait and see who they themselves truly are before trying to fit themselves into a preconceived role, especially if it's a role someone else designed for them. Hypocritically, these folks can get really angry when others don't stick to the roles they've mentally assigned them. In this life they are learning they do not get to control other people, and others don't get to control them either. Very often, this attachment to the script of their life blinds them to the real stars that life brings them. They're so focused on the idea of who they want that they neglect who is actually there. This is especially true in their romantic life. Instead of trying to fit someone into their own limited, preconceived ideas, they need to relax, open up, and approach every relationship as an act of discovery, discovering who that person uniquely is, appreciating them, and discovering and appreciating who they themselves are in that person's presence. Instead of searching for someone to have a relationship with, they need to wait until they meet someone who inspires them to want a relationship with that specific person. They have to learn to trust the timing of how things naturally unfold in life. Sometimes they will meet the right person, but that person isn't ready for them yet. It's crucial they accept this rather than trying to force an outcome, which will only backfire. Everyone has a right to go at their own pace. When North Node Aquarius 11th house people accept that someone isn't ready, or they're not ready for that person, without getting angry or judging the person or themselves as inferior, they demonstrate that they have the maturity and detachment to gracefully let go of what's not meant for them for now. If they can completely let go in this way, what's meant for them will come back to them, or be replaced by someone even better. From personal drama to detached appreciation. South Node Leo 5th house people have spent many lifetimes getting swept up in personal drama and may continue to create it in this life. They can be drama magnets, somehow always getting involved with people who create emotional turmoil and immature situations. In the past, their default response has been to get dragged down into the mud with this people. But in this life, they're learning to rise above it, to approach others from a detached but good-natured perspective. Instead of trying to control their partners and children, they're here to practice non-judgment and universal acceptance. What really helps North Node Aquarius 11th house people to not only create happier relationships but increase their personal satisfaction with their life is to cultivate an attitude of appreciation. This helps counteract many of their less positive traits, like judgment, comparison, competition, victim mentality, and arrogance. When they consciously choose to see the good in others and in their life generally, they begin to see how fortunate they are. They take off their green-colored glasses and see a little more clearly. One valuable aspect of this practice is to understand the inherently dualistic nature of reality, which, after all, is what every nodal axis is based on. Everything is really neutral, with a positive and negative side. For example, South Node Leo 5th house people may feel irritated by someone who talks too much about things they consider empty and superficial. However, if they learn to see that this person simply values social connection and exchanging energy and ideas with others, they can appreciate this person's chatty nature. They can consider how the annoying chattiness, when engaged with a positive attitude, can make their wait in the coffee line go much faster and make their day more pleasant and upbeat. Even though the person talks about superficial things, at least they have a positive attitude and want to connect with them. Another aspect of appreciation is silver linings. North Node Aquarius 11th house people need to develop a habit of looking for the silver linings in everything. Whatever difficult situation or disadvantage they believe they're dealing with, there is a way to turn it to their advantage. For example, maybe they fall ill and are bedridden for several weeks. They could get negative and allow themselves to stress out about all the work and fun they're missing, or they could use that time to do things they've procrastinated and neglected. They could binge watch that show they've been too busy to see, catch up on their reading, take an online workshop, work on a new business plan or book proposal, call old friends and reconnect with them, or simply reflect on the big picture of their life and where they want to go or what they want to change. No matter what, there is always an opportunity to take advantage of, even in the midst of our suffering. Collaboration instead of solo pursuits. In the past, South Node Leo 5th house people had to accomplish things on their own. The success or failure of the venture was always on them. Sure, they were the stars of the show and had a whole team of people working for them, but it was still on them to deliver the performance that everyone would see and judge. If the project succeeded, everyone praised them, but if it failed, everyone blamed them, too. This was true even though many others, perhaps hundreds, were involved in the project. That's not how this lifetime should be for these folks. If they continue to put themselves in the spotlight, it will bring them more pain than praise. Actually, they're now meant to share both the blame and the praise on their projects. This is a great relief for them. Everything isn't all on their shoulders and there's much less pressure. South Node Leo 5th house people bring in a ton of creative passion, but it's not easy for them to subdue it and follow orders. They love to contribute, but it has to be on their own terms. If they try to slow down their creative energy, it kills them and causes their energy to plummet. They can't just ignore their own impulses and do as they're told. They can work within limits, but they need some degree of autonomy to succeed. The positive side of their willfulness and ego they developed in past lives is that it gives them the strength they need to create and pursue new ventures. As long as they make sure to step back, analyze objectively, and consider what's best for the group they're trying to serve, they'll be successful. They just need to approach others from a position of equality, not being above anyone. If things aren't going well, that's the moment to step back, get a more objective perspective, and gather more information. They have to rein in their intense passion at the right moments so they don't self-sabotage by forging ahead in the wrong direction. When they dedicate themselves to causes that truly serve a higher purpose, life will bring them collaborators who help ensure their success. At the end of the day, they get to celebrate with a whole group of people instead of drinking alone. Rebel with a cause. While Aquarius is often seen as the rebel, it's the rebel with the cause. They can become true visionaries and catalysts for social change, people who challenge traditional structures and contribute to the collective precisely by embracing their unique and authentic individuality. These folks are not meant to conform, but to be their authentic selves regardless of what others think. However, they must not do this in a self-important, egoistic way. Instead, their rebellion must come from a place of authentic dedication to an altruistic path. In order to embrace this level of authenticity, they have to confront deep fears of rejection and isolation, by far some of the most difficult things a human being can face. Whether they adhere to or rebel against social standards, North Node Aquarius 11th house people need to have standards. They are learning to care about the peace and harmony of their chosen group, and it's important to follow common rules for prosocial behavior. The thing is, they often think they already do care about these things. They are not bad, selfish people who just want to dominate others. Consciously. They are basically good and kind people who believe in the goodness of others and of life. But that only lasts until they don't get their way. Then suddenly the spoiled child within them throws a temper tantrum, and their shadow side reveals itself. In the past they gambled big and lived hedonistically, and may still spend the early part of this life living that way. They didn't want to be responsible, refused to grow up, and could have had a real Peter Pan syndrome. It's likely they roamed around with many friends who ended up not being true to them, and eventually the experience of betrayal takes its toll. Later they become anxious, suspicious, and distrusting. These folks are forward-thinking, progressive, and innovative. They actively look for ways to improve the lives of others and make a positive impact on society. Placing an emphasis on inclusivity and egalitarianism is essential. They might thrive in innovative fields like technology, science, or social activism. They are socially conscious and have come to help usher in the next age. They have accumulated so much power in the past that now they are here to redistribute it. They see clearly what is best for humankind, are great networkers, and can powerfully uplift others. When they commit themselves to their higher cause, life supports them and brings them the right collaborators, and their projects succeed. Devoting themselves to a higher cause is what helps dissolve their negative karma. When they turn around to empower other people, they are rebalancing the axis. North Node Aquarius 11th house people have a purpose much bigger than themselves and their personal lives. Often what holds them back is that they're thinking too small. For example, they may be frustrated that their big idea was rejected at work when really life is trying to tell them to break off and start their own company. When they face this kind of rejection, they can ask themselves, am I thinking too small? What does this rejection free me up to do? What could be a better route? How can I help more people? The 11th house rules philanthropy, and giving back is important to these folks. South Node Leo 5th house people tend to be incredibly generous simply because they are used to having so much that they have enough to give away. In fact, in this life they may also be recipients of philanthropy because of the good karma they earned in this area in the past. Their devotion to a higher cause is what brings them a sense of wholeness. Their cause can be education, environmentalism, animal welfare, racial justice, gender equality, LGBTQ+ advocacy, voting rights, youth development, veteran care, mental health, a particular heritage, sexual violence prevention, curing a specific disease, gun violence, religious persecution, hunger relief, immigration, community unity, human trafficking, humanitarian relief, or a whole host of other issues. The best way to start is through finding a local organization working in a cause that interests them, checking out how to get involved, and trying it out. If no one is doing anything for the cause they're passionate about, that's their sign to start something new. Even if it's something small, like picking up trash by the highway or feeding their neighborhood stray cats, they'll be surprised by how much better they feel when they do it. When they figure out a good system, they can think about expanding it and inviting others to join. Whatever they do, it also provides a wonderful creative outlet for their emotional energy. North Node Aquarius 11th house people are visionaries and forces for change. In the past, they were attached to maintaining the status quo. Now they're here to disrupt it. But they're not destroying for the sake of destruction, they're destroying with the intention to rebuild. Careers in science, technology, and social activism can be very beneficial for them, even if they're not careers, but hobbies. Having a larger goal in mind also helps South Node Leo 5th house people rein in their ego when it tries to sabotage them. This works even on a small scale. For example, if their goal is for their children to grow up in a peaceful home environment, they might refrain from blowing up at their spouse and wait for the kids to go to bed before they address a conflict. Having a personally meaningful goal that helps them put the present in the context of the future they want helps them manage their negative tendencies. These folks have spent so much of their past playing a role for others that they are just sick of it. They have a profound and urgent need for freedom. They need to be radically authentic now, living only according to their own higher values and goals. They have to throw off the shackles of others' expectations, and release other people from their own expectations. Allowing themselves and others the freedom to be authentically oneself, without judgment, is one of the greatest gifts of this placement. They cannot follow the herd. They are visionaries who need to stay true to themselves and their vision, not only for their own sake, but for the well-being of the collective, too. They no longer have to sing and dance to entertain other people, they're here to live for higher ideals, something truly meaningful to them that allows them to retain their freedom and authentic voice. Their job isn't to make people feel good, but to do what's best to advance the collective. Romance and risk-taking. South Node Leo 5th house people have a very high risk tolerance, but unlike in the past, they don't have such great luck or a lot to fall back on. They can be big gamblers, adrenaline junkies, actual junkies, and Casanovas who believe they are invincible and can always survive even if the odds are not in their favor. In love, these folks easily put others on a pedestal. After all, people did it to them in the past, and create whatever fantasy they need to fuel the dream. Whether they actually get into a relationship or it remains only a crush, it is never really about the other person. After all, the South Node Leo 5th house person doesn't naturally see other people for who they are. Instead, it's about their addiction to the emotional energy. Romance, not love, but romance, therefore becomes a high-stakes, addictive game to them, much like gambling. The stakes of winning and losing are exaggerated for them because their ego is so attached, so the success or failure of the relationship is felt as a reflection of their personal worth. This, of course, is very dangerous and easily becomes self-sabotaging, as they put too much pressure on the relationship. Then their need for control kicks in, making things even worse. It's easy for them to get trapped in fantasy, not only in their romantic lives but in life generally, but this is self-sabotaging, as it leads them into complacency. As long as they can just dream of accomplishment or the perfect relationship, they don't have to try to actually create those things. They pass up opportunities to do so if they're anything less than their idea of perfect or right for them, not realizing that the perfect opportunity or person will never come along. They have to work to actually make their projects and relationships happen. Their challenge is to stop fantasizing and projecting and instead take the opportunities they have here and now. Any self-aggrandizing motives or concerns, what will people think if I, will cloud their judgment, but focusing on altruistic goals and factual reality will help them succeed. In fact, these folks are often also the objects of other people's projections, which can be extremely frustrating, if not infuriating, for them. This is because in past lives they occupied such a big role in public consciousness that they were always the subject of others' projections, good or bad. Of course, being on a pedestal can feel good. For a minute. After a while, it's just dehumanizing and puts too much pressure on them. But even worse is when people project their negativity onto these folks and see terrible things in them that simply are not there. They are often the targets of other people's drama because they were such drama kings in their own past. They are learning just how uncomfortable it is on both sides, and how easy it is to project. Very often South Node Leo 5th house people play games in love, but they don't realize when others are not playing games with them. They project their own game-playing nature onto others, seeing manipulation when it isn't there, and sabotaging their own best chances. As a result, they only attract people like themselves, people who are also approaching love egoistically and with a player mindset. When an authentic and sincere person approaches them, they either get turned off or they're so triggered they don't know how to handle the person, because none of their usual tactics work. Of course, authentic people soon realize that the South Node Leo 5th house person is just a player, and they lose interest. When they blindly follow the high of passion without really seeing who the other person is, South Node Leo 5th house people always end up heartbroken. It's very difficult for them, but they have to learn to slow down in love. They have to recognize that sometimes the excitement they feel is really their nervous system warning them to slow down. The same is true of gambling and other high adrenaline temptations. South Node Leo 5th house people are learning to slow down in relationships. Too often they want to seize the high of passion and jump in, but this is what prevents them from seeing the other person clearly and building a solid foundation of friendship based on mutual trust and respect. They need to practice trust, not just in others but in life and in themselves, and allow timing to unfold naturally. There is a rhythm to relationship building like waves washing the shore, moments to pull together and moments to step back, not in a manipulative game-playing way, but in a natural balancing act between seeing who they are together and evaluating the relationship from their separate perspectives. Because they are naturally in tune with their own feelings, North Node Aquarius 11th house people can feel their own rhythm out for themselves, but they need to practice tuning into the other person's energy to see when they're receptive to an advance and when it's best to refrain. Their romantic challenge is to discipline their passions long enough to establish a foundation of friendship with a partner who truly inspires that same passion. Paradoxically, these folks need a lot of freedom and independence in their relationships. This is because while they're passionate and deep-feeling, they're actually very selfish and shallow. They're not interested in deeply knowing and valuing another person, they just want their ego gratification and otherwise, don't want to be bothered. It is hard to achieve true intimacy with these lovers, and partners often leave them for this reason. They don't feel truly seen, valued, or appreciated, but more like servants in the South Node Leo 5th house person's court, or fans in their crowd. These folks have a habit of subconsciously collecting admirers, always on the lookout for their next potential mate in case the person they're with abandons them. As a result, they may never experience a truly equal and intimate, fulfilling partnership. Choosing a partner. In fact, they can be so focused on their image and social approval that they give up their true love because that person don't fit the image they need, instead partnering with someone who they think will make them look good and gain status. Ultimately, they lead lives of bitter regret over their own self-betrayal. These are the folks who on their deathbed say, "I wish I lived the life I wanted to live instead of the one others wanted for me." At the same time, they cannot stand to be outshone, so they will never pursue someone of a higher status than them. Their ego is so fragile and easily threatened that they prefer to date down, choosing someone who is good enough to augment their social image but not so good as to outshine them. At their worst, these folks will actively keep their partner under their thumb in order to prevent them from stealing their spotlight. Thus they can be very narcissistic partners with a constant need to be the special or superior one in the relationship. Unconsciously they expect to be served by others, including their partner. They are simply not used to being truly equal to other people, including their intimate partner. But learning to see their partner, and everyone, as equal to them is an enormous part of their nodal path. South Node Leo 5th house people must also avoid people-pleasing in love. Once they see that someone admires them, it's tempting for them to say, well, the show must go on, and try to maintain a performance of what they assume the other person wants. This only backfires, as not only do they hide their authentic selves but the other person senses they're being fake, and the relationship ends. Authenticity is not just a virtue for these folks, it's the only way they can sustain real relationships. Due to having so much romantic karma from past lives, very often the South Node Leo 5th house person will encounter the one who got away. This is someone whom they regard as their true equal or perhaps even too good for them. The problem is that their ego gets in the way of them accepting this person as a partner. They feel too threatened by someone who is as strong and powerful as they are. Losing this person becomes one of the great sorrows of their life. However, if they can effectively put their ego in the right size and right place, they will be able to partner with a true equal. Aiming for equality in all relationships, especially the romantic relationship, is the only way for those relationships to succeed. Choosing a partner with whom they can share a clear vision for the future is also enormously beneficial, because these folks are meant to work with others toward common goals. However, it's essential that each individual partner already have their vision in mind before coming together. They must not sacrifice their own desires or let the other person's vision take over their own. Honoring individual uniqueness and autonomy is crucial for North Node Aquarius 11th house relationships. Maintaining a romantic relationship. South Node Leo 5th house people are often born with an addiction to romantic passion, though occasionally with an instinctive aversion to it, due to past excess. When they feel passionately about someone, they want to bond immediately with that person. However, it's not genuinely about the other person, who is usually the one pursuing the South Node Leo 5th house person. It's about the high of passion that they're chasing, afraid of missing out on some peak life experience. But then their innate loyalty clicks in, and suddenly they find themselves almost slavishly devoted to someone they didn't thoroughly check out to begin with. Their psychological health becomes totally dependent on how well their partner is receiving them, and they shift into a people-pleasing mode in which they try to manipulate the person into giving them the love and attention they deeply crave. This is incredibly toxic, especially if they stay loyal to someone who hurts them. Ultimately, they are completely vulnerable to and reliant upon their partner. They build up an idealized image of their partner while tormenting themselves with all kinds of fears about how the relationship could go wrong. They slip into survival mode and become increasingly desperate. Of course, this only turns the other person off. By putting too much intensity into the relationship too soon, they destroy it. This even happens with crushes with whom they never develop a relationship. Often, they put someone on such a high pedestal that there's no way they can feel good enough for that person. Rather than risk rejection, let alone actually getting to know their crush, they prefer to yearn helplessly for them, spending less of their lives on reality and more on the dreams and fantasies of what that relationship could be like. Ultimately, their partners, actual or potential, realize that South Node Leo 5th house people are not really interested in them, but in a love object. The South Node Leo 5th house person thinks they're in love with someone, but they don't truly know the person, only their image of them. They genuinely believe they are selflessly serving the other person's needs, but they're sometimes unconsciously being people-pleasing manipulators trying to elicit positive attention from someone. They think they're enjoying this wonderful relationship, but at least half of it is a fantasy in their mind's eye. Very often, these folks do not end up with someone they're truly in love with, and always yearn for the one who got away. They lose the relationships in which they feel a profound mutual passion and end up marrying people they feel lukewarm about. That's because they can see the lukewarm person more clearly, precisely because their passion is not fogging their vision. And that can work out well. They end up with a marriage that's based on friendship, reason, and mutual respect, one that gives them lots of freedom and independence to pursue friendships and group causes precisely because there is less fear and possessiveness. However, if over years the spark of romance in the relationship truly dies and someone else comes along to arouse their romantic passion, South Node Leo 5th house people are highly likely to stray. But North Node Aquarius 11th house people can have the best of both worlds when they learn to properly master their emotions, slow down, and introduce some distance and objectivity precisely when they feel most passionately about someone. Building a foundation of friendship first, avoiding a needs exchange, giving to get attitude, and cultivating selfless love and appreciation for the other person are essential for the longevity of their romantic relationships. Both partners should feel complete in their own right, and the relationship should involve two strong and independent people joining forces, not because they need to but because they freely choose to. Even their romantic relationships should be based on mutual respect, freedom, and independence. This is partly because South Node Leo 5th house people have so much love to give. They have excess emotional energy in general, especially love, and channeling it all into one person overwhelms their partner and puts too much pressure on the relationship. This is why they need to cultivate group associations, develop a large network of friends, and devote themselves to a higher cause or two. In the past, the energy of love flowed from the masses to the South Node Leo 5th house individual. Now they must reciprocate by giving that energy back to the collective, not just passing it on to one other person. If they want their romantic relationship to work, they have to consciously distribute some of their intense energy to other people and projects. The art of selfless love. South Node Leo 5th house people are learning to give rather than receive, without thought of what they'll get in return. This doesn't mean they should let themselves be taken advantage of, simply that they have some karmic balancing to do. They are here to learn about selfless love, to love others just for who they are and to wish the best for them, even if it means losing them. To love others for who they are and not what they do for us marks the difference between immature and mature love. Selfless love involves loving someone for their intrinsic value, admiring their qualities, and being grateful for their mere existence. Selfish love involves loving someone just for their instrumental value, for what they do for us, and viewing the relationship as a form of needs exchange. Selfless love wants the best for the person, even if it means letting go of the relationship. Making a relationship into a mere exchange of needs also ultimately burdens the couple. Eventually they feel weighed down by the responsibility of fulfilling someone else's needs and maintaining someone else's psychological well-being. It doesn't work for anyone involved. South Node Leo 5th house people cannot let their need to be more special than their partner or friend dominate the relationship even for an instant. They easily enjoy the early stages of a relationship in which the other person puts them on a pedestal. It's a familiar place since they were so often on a pedestal in past lives. But mature love sees both partners as equal, equally special and equally flawed. Mature love humanizes us, pedestals dehumanize us and make it impossible to be truly ourselves. As long as we're coming from a place of need, we're not making a free choice. Beneath the South Node Leo 5th house person's need for love and approval is the profound fear that they are not worthy of it. They put so much pressure on their relationships because subconsciously, they're trying to earn the right to be loved. Of course, what they don't realize is that true love is not something we have to earn, it simply is. While relationships are very conditional, if you hit me or cheat on me, I must end the relationship. Real love is unconditional, you broke my heart but I still love you. Their feelings of unworthiness lead South Node Leo 5th house people to sabotage relationships with the very people who have this unconditional love for them. When someone who loves them selflessly, for their mere existence, approaches them, they don't understand this love. It feels foreign to them and since in their mind they don't deserve it, they reject it. This can happen even when the South Node Leo 5th house person actually feels the same. They are so accustomed to conditional love that unconditional love freaks them out. The very person who loved them most profoundly ends up feeling rejected and walking away. Learning how to accept true, selfless love is the ultimate karmic lesson for North Node Aquarius 11th house people. It requires them to truly view themselves as equal to others and view others as equal to themselves. It requires them to stop putting others on a pedestal and stop looking down on others with judgment and superiority. It requires them to stop trying to control everything and trust that life will bring them the right people at the right time. It requires them to devote themselves to the highest cause of all, love itself, not the personal, possessive, passionate kind of love but the transcendent, universal love that is the essence of the energy of life itself, flowing effortlessly through all living beings, including themselves. Freeing ourselves from the grip of ego. For South Node Leo 5th house people, their worst enemy is their own ego. Their desire for prestige and attention is a bottomless pit that leads them to adopt an arrogant, judgmental attitude that ruins their relationships and to live beyond their means as they constantly try to maintain a certain image. But in the end, it always backfires. They practically have to starve their ego in order to balance out past lifetimes of excess, and if they don't do it themselves, life will do it for them. Life will not grant them the fulfillment they crave until they learn their nodal lesson. Life will test them with small victories to see how they respond. If they use their success to inflate their ego, it will be taken away, but if they use it to lift others up alongside them, they'll win more. These folks are learning to release their need for control and instead go with the flow of life. However, this requires them to develop a level of trust and faith that few people ever attain. It is not an easy task. When things don't go the way they planned or they face opposition from others, it's important for North Node Aquarius 11th house people to pause and ask themselves how this might actually be for the greater good, or even ultimately in their own best interest. They're learning to accept that they can't see everything and don't have all the answers. Unlike in their past as rulers who had inside information, they can now only see as much as anyone else sees. They must humble themselves and acknowledge that they can't possibly know best because they don't know everything. In fact, South Node Leo 5th house people are often wrong even about their own desires. They don't actually know what will make them happy, They can't accurately predict how they will feel once they acquire or achieve a certain thing. Often when people give them what they think they want, they're not as satisfied as they thought they would be. They need to realize that the only reason they want anything is not for the thing itself, but how they believe they will feel once they have it. Once they shift their focus to the feeling they want rather than the thing, or person, they can focus on cultivating that feeling in the here and now, regardless of whether they actually get what they think they desire. Most, if not all, of the time, they'll come to realize they never needed what they thought. They had what they really wanted all along, within themselves. This helps them to depersonalize situations that don't go their way and become more emotionally independent, which only makes them stronger. When we think we know, we don't know. That is one of the major lessons for South Node Leo 5th house people. As long as they stay attached to a specific idea of what will make them happy, they limit themselves and close off all the other potential sources of happiness they could enjoy. If instead they shift into a non-judgmental mode of receptivity and openness, they will receive more than they ever dreamed, and feel better than they imagined. They'll be surprised by what truly makes them happy. Furthermore, these folks are subject to the backwards law in which the harder we try, the more our efforts boomerang back to us and the more we fail. It's only once we let go of our attachment to results that what we want comes to us, usually in a form we didn't expect. Whenever these folks get too attached to how they want or expect things to unfold, they neglect the reality of how things are actually unfolding, and miss their chance to participate effectively and change the outcome. For South Node Leo 5th house people, expectations breed disappointment. Only objective observation and impartial acceptance supplies them with the information they need to act effectively. This is especially true when it comes to friends and relationships. If the North Node Aquarius 11th house person just relaxes, observes, and is their authentic self, they will be able to see others more objectively and figure out who would be a good friend for them and who wouldn't. Then they're able to be their authentic selves with that friend, too. From separation consciousness to unity consciousness. At the heart of every religion and spiritual faith, and even of physics and biology, is the knowledge that all that lives emerged from a single source, whether we call it God or the singularity that preceded the Big Bang or life itself. This vague idea is almost universally agreed upon. What Buddhism calls unity consciousness is not only the intellectual awareness of this inherent oneness, but the emotional, psycho-spiritual experience of it, and it is the subject of enlightenment. Yet we are all born into physically separate bodies and raised in cultures and societies that teach us separation consciousness, a state reinforced by our egoic minds and their instinct for self-preservation. This is the belief that all we are is separate from other people, other animals, the earth itself, and the universe at large. When it comes to the nodal axis of astrology, it is my belief that some have a harder time accessing unity consciousness than others due to past lifetimes spent in survival mode and attachment to material reality. These include the Earth's south nodes and some of the fire south nodes, including the South Node and Leo in the 5th house. Due to having spent so much of their past fighting for themselves and their own survival, it is harder for them than for others to slow down, step back, and see the big picture, that we are all part of the same whole. It is important for these placements to strive for the experience of unity consciousness. They can do this through meditation, reading spiritual and philosophical texts, listening to spiritual teachers, spending time in nature, and more. It is not that we should deny the reality of separation, though. Separation consciousness is often dismissed as an illusion of the physical world and egoic mind, but we incarnate separately for a reason, to learn our nodal lessons, to evolve consciousness, to ascend spiritually. We are here precisely to experience separation. The ultimate fulfillment of spiritual awareness may just be that both unity and separation are true, and to hold both states of consciousness simultaneously as we move through life, elevating neither one over the other but learning to live as both. Appreciate the gold. Before we conclude, I want to remind you to appreciate the gold in the shadow of your South Node in Leo in the 5th house. Who doesn't love a Leo? They are exuberant, joyous, and they always know how to have fun. They're the charismatic life of the party, with an infectious good humor and a beautifully childlike sense of wonder. South Node Leo 5th house people bring these qualities into this life in spades, and you are a wonderful gift to your loved ones. You are incredibly creative, bringing passion and originality into even the smallest creative acts. You're loyal and generous, one of the best people to have in one's corner because you can be so encouraging and uplift your loved ones when they're down. You are also a courageous and great leader, always loyal and willing to take risks for the ones you love. Our South Node isn't only about what we get wrong or do to excess, it also includes what we've mastered and can teach to others. No quality is wholly good or bad, but each one has both a light and a dark manifestation. Once we learn how to express our South Node in a healthy way with good boundaries, aware of its dark side, we can reach back for the gold in the shadow and share its light. We can teach others the skills we've mastered, leading by example and helping others learn their Leo lessons. Once it is balanced, our South Node also becomes the foundation for our North Node. As with everything, each archetype contains the seed of its opposite, like the yin-yang symbol. It is precisely because South Node Leo 5th house people have a strong sense of self that they are able to turn their understanding outward and tune into the uniqueness of others. It is through this balance they can finally achieve the sense of belonging for which their soul deeply yearns. Further practice and inquiry. I hope this ebook has been illuminating for you on your personal quest for growth. In all my work, my goal is to help raise the collective level of human consciousness. We are each responsible for doing so, by taking responsibility for our own individual piece of consciousness. With the information I've communicated here, I hope you feel more empowered to take care of your own. I wish to communicate a few more things to look for which may be helpful. First, I didn't just want to dump theory on you. As I wrote these ebooks, I realized there were so many references, books, videos, podcasts, as well as reflection questions and practical actions, that could help you think and problem solve in even more ways, in ways I didn't have the space to delve into in this ebook alone. Conscious of the fact that reading theory is just the tip of the iceberg, I wanted to give you practical ways of applying your new knowledge to your life specifically. That's why I created a workbook for each nodal placement on northnodesignandhouse.com. Recommendations for books, movies, videos, podcasts, and more provide food for thought and explorations of the Leo 5th house/Aquarius 11th house themes. Journal prompts and activity recommendations lead you off of the screen and into the world, where you can be empowered to make a difference in your own life. Even though this book series on the nodes specific to sign and house is a huge leap forward in the collective project of astrological study, each chart is so completely unique that there are still more factors that may influence your specific experience. For some, the path is easier, for others, it seems to be blocked at every turn. While I don't want to overwhelm you with information, focusing simply on the information above is already an enormous project. If you ever feel blocked or confused, here are a few keys in your chart to consider. First, consider your big three, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, in context of your nodal placement. Ask yourself, why would a soul with these nodal challenges choose a personality with these big three? For example, a North Node Aquarius 11th house is most likely to have an Aries ascendant, and let's say they have a Capricorn Sun with a Pisces Moon. With an Aries ascendant, the midheaven is likely to also be in Capricorn, so the Sunday may be in the 9th or 10th house and the Moon may be in the 11th or 12th. Clearly this person still needed some of the fire of Aries, so their early life likely required them to have a strong front and stand up for themselves. But they needed the sensitivity of a Pisces Moon to experience the compassion required for Aquarian qualities to develop. The Capricorn Sun indicates the need for strength and determination, which also counterbalances the weak ego nature of the Pisces Moon. With the midheaven in Capricorn, as well as the Sun placed nearby, career is important to this person. With the strength of their ascendant and South Node, they are likely to be a leader of some kind. Yet the North Node indicates the need for equality, cooperation, and selflessness, including in their career, and the Pisces Moon helps them attune to others. This person is therefore well equipped to balance a compassionate emotional nature with a healthy ego that can assert itself in the world. Second, consider any aspects made to the nodes, less than 4 degrees. You can find plenty of articles online by searching for any relevant aspects, but for the sake of simplicity I will note here that harmonious aspects, trines and sextiles, help, conjunctions challenge, and squares indicate a skipped step, a karmic lesson one completely missed and must redo. In our hypothetical Capricorn Pisces chart, let's suppose Mercury is in Sagittarius, trine the South Node and sextile the North Node. Remember, an aspect to one end of the nodal axis is simultaneously an aspect to the other end, Mercury representing thinking and communication. This person has a quick, intelligent mind, but likely lacks a filter between mind and mouth, which gets them into trouble. In light of the South Node and Leo in the 5th house, their passion can really get the best of them and they probably often say things out of emotion that they later regret. Third, the rulers of the nodes carry enormous weight. In your case, the South Node is ruled by the Sun and the North Node is ruled by Uranus, which is another reason your nodal lessons play out on the topic of authenticity. The houses of these planets indicate challenges and opportunities, respectively. For example, with the Sun in Capricorn close to the midheaven, this person likely strongly identifies with their career and position in society, and their ego depends strongly on it. This makes the lessons of their Aquarius North Node even more important. Meanwhile, let's say their Uranus is in Pisces, conjunct their Moon, in the 12th house. This blends their sense of autonomy and innovation with their feelings and intuition, but in the 12th house of hidden things, both their lunar and Uranian natures are hidden in the subconscious, difficult to express openly and outwardly. While they feel deeply and have profound, even ingenious, insights, it's hard for them to express their compassion and uniqueness. Their North Node in Aquarius in the 11th house is inviting them to bring their unique empathy out of the dark. It would be the task of many lifetimes to interpret every possible configuration of Big Three, nodal aspects, and nodal rulers in combination with each nodal placement. It has taken me many years just to write these 144 ebooks on the signs and houses of the nodes. But I hope this example has given you a clue of how to suss out any additional challenges or blocks your particular chart may represent. If you're not sure, I recommend finding an astrologer who specializes in the nodes and can interpret your chart specifically. If and when I am personally available, I will make it known on the website. Famous North Node Aquarius 11th house individuals. Learning about the lives and choices of your fellow travelers can help you see both healthy and unhealthy ways of leveraging your South Node wisdom and pursuing your North Node purpose. Alexander the Great, Mary Queen of Scots, Andrew Jackson, Les Paul, Pep Guardiola, Alan Segarra, Henry the Navigator, Umberto Agnelli, Frank Capra, Jeff Gordon, Elizabeth Arden, Mario Balotelli, Gary Barlow, Richard Anconina, Lee Massari, Zico, Jean Yan, Pablo Alboran, Claudio Abbado, Bernard Blier, Tony Cruz, Richard Widmark, James Ensor, Nicholas Brendan, André Caplet, Moshe Dayan, Renee Margotten,